News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, with you until the top of the hour. Joining us this Sunday morning, Lee Harris, who's legal counsel over at Limestone Title and Escrow, and she's out early this morning. You can reach her on her cell at 649-7964. Good to see you from the car, Lee. Good morning.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello. Also, Randy Rocky with Swan Financial. He does a great job with closings and getting people approved for loans and getting them to the closing table. And you can reach Randy and his crew anytime over at 645-0736. That's 645-0736. Thank you, Randy, for being here. My son Greg.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning. My son Greg does our marketing, photography, and so much more is with us. And you can reach me anytime on my cell phone at 376-5483. That's my direct number. We are constantly looking for homes to list and sell, and we have buyer agents that'll help you find a home. Among the stories we're following, Randy, did you see this? Aspiring homeowners may soon find it easier to get a mortgage as rent payments are about to be part of the approval process. What's the story on that?
Yeah, so what they're doing is they're going to put that as part of the approval process. You have to make sure, we have to verify as a mortgage company that they made those on time. And if they do that, then the approval for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac will take that into play and be part of the approval process now, which is a positive thing. We're glad to see that.
It's the report I read that the change comes as fewer than 5% of renters currently have their payments included on their credit report. So this comes as a big deal, helping them boost their credit rating?
I don't know if it'll be so much a boost their credit. It'll just be picked up in the automated process where it'll say, hey, they're making their payments on time. I believe it's going to be a 12-month process or a 6-month process. And as long as they do that, then that'll be a factor in them saying, okay, we're going to approve these people because they're obviously responsible enough to make their rental payment on time.
Good. Well, it's a good news for anybody who's renting and who wants to try building credit. That will help indeed. We are operating in a COVID world right now, folks. And what that means is we're doing our meetings of these shows on Zoom, and then we upload them to YouTube. And you can see a replay of these shows by going to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's a redirect to our YouTube channel, LouisvilleAnswers.com. And by way of that, if you have a question, instead of normally as you would call us and get it on the air, because we're working with limited tech on the COVID shows, we ask you send me an email, bob@WeSellLouisville.com, and then put in the subject line radio question, and then put the question in the body of the email. And that's what we have loaded, ready to ask our experts this morning. And the first one goes to Randy. This is from Robert, who emailed this question. What is the minimum credit rating that Robert needs to get a loan for a new home? And also, how much money does he need in his bank account to purchase that new home, Randy?
So the minimum credit rating is 580, and he needs 3.5% down in that scenario because you'll be FHA. So that's what it would be, an FHA loan, 3.5% down, 580 credit score.
We've talked in the past about FHA, and Lee, from a legal aspect, we try not to discriminate back and forth, but FHA does have a negative connotation to some sellers when they see that. In the past, they wanted an FHA appraiser is also charged with an inspection as of 2012, which makes it more difficult to get a home passed. Have things changed, lightened up, Randy or Lee? Do you know?
I think that the negative connotation of FHA is kind of misplaced, because an FHA loan is just as good as any other loan, and in fact, a lot of people get them, and a seller shouldn't feel weary because of that. It used to be different, and 15 years ago, we didn't even do FHA loans then because it was very difficult. We thought. Now, once we got into these, Lee hit the nail on the head, and still some of that negative connotation, and really shouldn't be.
Well, also it's the timing too, right? It's you're trying to clear that message in a market that is more competitive than ever. So anything with any negative connotation, whether it's an actual appraisal to guarantee that the home is worth its value, that could throw you off. So forget about any, that's what it's really in a harsh time where it's trying to turn its MO around. But it's really
a great point.
If you have, and I'll say this as good as, if you have a good agent, they should be able to craft a good enough offer to make that FHA issue a non-issue.
By the way, if you want to see what people are talking about good agents, when they talk about our Sokoler team, go to LouisvilleZillow.com, or you can head to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com, and we also have LouisvilleBuyersTalk.com if you want to see what people are saying or talking about in video. Next question. This is for you, Lee. Mandy is writing in an email. She says, I visited a home in South Louisville 2 weeks ago and put an offer in which was accepted. I'm closing next week. That's fast. Good for her. And I went back for a walkthrough yesterday, and she apparently was shocked to find out that the home is in the path of jets landing at the airport, Louisville International Airport. Nothing was disclosed about being in the path of jets. Is there anything she can do to get out of the closing? So there's no requirement for disclosing jets.
No, it's called a condition. Basically, what a seller has to disclose is any defects on their actual property, which would be the roof leaks, the basement leaks, HVAC doesn't work. But the conditions on other properties or conditions surrounding that property are not something that a seller has to disclose. And actually, the onus is on the buyer, to go around the neighborhood or to scope out the area and to see, if they like the area. And naturally, any homes that are in the path of the airport would be something that the buyer would want to perhaps go there and sit out there or something in their car or stand out there and see if they like it. It could be near a train track. It could be near a gas station, whatever it might be. One time we had somebody who complained because the neighbors had a chicken coop, but the seller can't control what's happening on all these other, properties. And naturally the airport, unfortunately, Mandy, is pretty well known. And so it's something that wasn't hidden by any means. And so I don't think there's going to be any ability to, get out of that contract based upon that.
I think you bring up a good point about doing some due diligence. If you like a home, you can put an offer in. Don't waive any of the contingencies like a home inspection. That'll give you 10 days or so to do some more research, which means go out there, as you say, and maybe just walk the neighborhood. And
Sure.
The thing with an airport, though, and I think this scares some buyers in this, is that, the flight directions change based on wind. So
Right.
They may be landing them from another direction. Now, all of a sudden, when she goes out for the walkthrough, they're landing them in the direction that takes them over her home. That in itself could create a problem, but there's really no way around it unless you know, if you're near an airport, what the path of those planes are going to be, right?
Right. And a lot of people, they do it for a lot of different reasons. A lot of buyers will go out at 10 o'clock at night, let's say, and see if they, if there's a bunch of people running around making noise, or if there's a lot of, if they feel like it's an unsafe neighborhood, or lots of different things that you can find out just by either going over there at different times of the day or walk in the neighborhood, like Bob said, just to kind of get yourself educated about the neighborhood you're moving into. Yeah. And I think pretty much, in Louisville, you're going to have a lot of different things like airplanes and trains and different things that might cause noise.
Yeah, you are right on target there. Trains can be a real hassle as well as you're waiting to get.
I'll never forget. Yeah, so you could go to Google and look to see what, if there's a train track by you. I lived out in Crestwood, pretty, from what I thought, a decent way away from the train tracks.
Yeah.
And believe you me, anybody who lives out in Crestwood or Oldham County, they know that that early morning whistle, that thing is, that train can be loud and obnoxious. But you get used to it. Honestly, I lived in New York City too, by a subway line. It just becomes background noise and you get used to it.
Yeah, I grew up in Anchorage and people would come to my house for a sleepover and they'd say, "Oh my gosh, that train." And I'm like, "What train?"
Yeah, you're like, I don't even notice it. I don't thought about it.
Yeah.
Greg and I list a lot of property, and I will tell you the problems that we see. The airport can be one, Mandy, but the other problems that we see if you're by a highway or train tracks or water tower, and it can go as much as if the neighbor next door parks his or her car on the lawn. All that can be a problem. And let's face it, they may not be home when you see the house, and they may be there when at night. It may be worth a visit. I would tell you, you could go as far on this as to look for tire tracks on lawns next to the homes that you're going to potentially buy. And
this is why, we will tell people, depending on your situation, if you're new to the Louisville area, drive just before you start making offers on homes.
Yeah.
Know the locations that you're going, look at the neighborhoods, get with an agent who knows the neighborhoods as well. Obviously they can't steer you one way or another, but they can certainly help you understand the lay of the land.
Yep. Let's move on. Randy, this next question is for you. Joe wrote in saying in this email, one of the banks in town is offering a construction loan that converts to an adjustable rate mortgage after the home is built. And Joe's saying he's a little concerned about the adjustable rate part of this and how high interest rates could possibly go. Let's face it, they're hovering in the low threes right now. But he's wondering any other options that would involve a construction loan. What would you suggest?
Yes, it's funny you mentioned that. There's a major competitor of mine that's a bank that 80% of their loans are adjustable rate mortgages. And in my opinion, the reason they do that is so they can refinance them in 3 to 5 years. And they usually only run about 3/8 of a point cheaper than what my fixed rate 30-year rate mortgage is. And it's very sad. And I really sincerely mean that. I've probably sold 2 adjustable rates in 21 years I've been in business. And the reason I've done that is people told me, hey, I want to be definitely out of here in a year and a half. Yep. But anyways, with that being said, what he can do is he can take that construction loan and come to someone like myself that will put him in a fixed rate mortgage, 30-year fixed. And again, to me, it's an amazing insurance policy. If you're paying, 3/8 of a points difference, and you don't wake up 5 years from now and your mortgage literally went from, let's say 3.1% APR to 5.1, and it could go as high as 9.1. All adjustable rate mortgages that I know of can go up as much as 6 points total. So
over the life.
It can get very scary.
Yeah, and just FYI, most people move 3, 5, 7 years. That's pretty much the average.
Right.
And
I agree.
You can make a case if you think you're going to be in the home only 3 years. So maybe you look at the ARM, the adjustable rate mortgage. But for the difference, just for the security of not getting slammed down the road, it would make sense to go with a fixed and pay a couple of little percentage points more and have that security in case you decide to stay in the home. You never know what could happen.
Well, and that's the thing, Bob, is we all know a lot of times you think you're going to be somewhere 3 years. It's just like you said, and you're there for 6.
Yeah.
Or you're there for 7. So, 3/8 of a point, yes, it is money, but it's not large money, but 6 points is a big number. And if rates have gone way up, then what do you do at that point?
Yes, by the way, and this is a good point to bring out to everybody that, historically, rates are still very low. So if you have not refinanced and you're not planning to move and you've got a rate 4, 5, 6 or more, please, you still have time to contact people like Randy. I'll give you his number in a second and see if it's worthwhile for you to refinance, because it will help you in terms of saving more money, keeping that money in your own pocket. We will take a break. When we come back, a variety of things planned for you, including 10 money mistakes to avoid when you move. Yes, 10, which I think is important. Here with us till the top of the hour, we have got Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow. You can reach Lee at 649-7964. Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial. He's ready to take your phone calls, 645-0736. My son Greg, who does our marketing photography and is getting well known for it, believe me, and also has new equipment that he's loved playing with. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, anytime, 376-5483. We are back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you until the top of the hour. Continuing with us, Randy Rocky, Swan Financial, does a great job, 645-0736. Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow, who is a phenomenal attorney, does a lot of extra work for a lot of people, including a lot of us agents. And you can reach Lee at 649-7964. My son Greg, who does our marketing, photography, and so much more, is here. And you can reach me because we're constantly looking to help you sell your home, or if you're going to buy a home, we've got 10 agents ready to help. You can reach me on my phone anytime, 376-5483. And my thanks to Barbara Cochran, who does so much on Shark Tank, and as a great lady, we appreciate her friendship and mentorship. And you can see Barbara on Shark Tank. It's not every week, but she's on a regular basis. So you're thinking of moving. Here's some mistakes that you may want to avoid, because let's face it, it's nerve-wracking and this could happen quickly. The importance of planning ahead. So once you accept an offer on your house or you put an offer on a house, You could have as little as 30 days or less to clear everything out. So it's time to start thinking. You want to immediately call moving companies if you're going to use movers and ask for quotes. I would get at least 3 quotes from different movers and see who gives you the best deal. When you contact a moving company to get a quote, you may be asked to estimate the weight of your belongings or how much the space they're going to take up in the truck. If you underestimate, you could end up paying a steep overage fee. It's best to have a company send a rep to your home, just FYI. You know, I moved furniture a couple of years or so ago, and I got added insurance. Smartest thing, they did some damage, and moving companies are required to offer a minimum amount of insurance on items damaged during the move, but it can be less than 60 cents a pound. For instance, if a big screen TV you just purchased is dropped and broken, you might collect as little as $20 depending on its weight. So to be safe, purchase third-party insurance that will cover actual replacement value of damaged items. If you're packing valuables with other possessions, don't do it. Don't shove Great Aunt Ruby's diamond earrings into a box with a bunch of coats or books. You want to take your valuables separately and don't pack them in a box. Don't pack too much because most moving companies charge based on the weight of your belongings, and you'll save money if you move some of the heavier things yourself, if you can, obviously. If you require additional services, you could get socked with overage fees if the moving company has to carry your possessions up a flight of stairs at your new home, or if they can't park nearby and have to use a shuttle to transport your belongings to their truck. So check with the moving company ahead of time and let them know what the house you're moving to looks like so they can give you an accurate accounting of what you're going to owe. If you're moving a computer, folks, take it from me, you back up that computer, make sure you back it up and keep it separately from the computer. So if something happens as it's being moved, it's hot, in the moving truck, something happens to it in shaking, you got to back up. Don't wait to schedule moving day. And moving companies are very much aware of the changes from week to week or day to day because of a delay. So set the date you think you're going to close based on what your agent tells you, and then you can always call them and tell them, look, we've had to change, something's delayed, or we want to try to speed it up to see what they can do. And then picking the cheapest moving company, folks, may not be the smartest move, because the cheapest ones may actually end up costing you more money in delays, damage, and the like. Also, finally, make sure you check your inventory sheet when they leave the house. So right before they leave, they're going to give you a sheet to check off that everything's been moved, make sure all the boxes are there, because you could find later, which would be too late, that the box that you thought things were in never showed up. And then also one more thing, don't forget to cancel your utilities. We had a closing a couple weeks ago where the other side didn't cancel didn't sign up for their utilities, and our sellers went an extra mile by letting their utilities stay on an extra day so that the buyers didn't have a cancellation fee or having to get somebody back out there again. So good for them, and those are some suggestions. All right, let's move back to the questions. These are coming in via email. And Lee, this one's for you. Dick has a problem and wrote to us about it. He's buying a home with a pool, and he presumed the inspector that the agent had recommended inspected the pool as well. As it turns out, the inspector did not, and now it's too late to get a pool company to inspect the pool because they've gone past the inspection deadline, and Dick is asking what are his options at this point.
Oh, well, if the inspection deadline has been passed, unless the seller gives him an extension to get the pool repaired, he cannot do that because there's a phrase in that inspection that says time is of the essence, meaning that you only have the number of days that you put there and no additional days. Of course, the seller is required to disclose anything in their seller disclosure form, and if they know of any defects in the pool, then they should have disclosed those on that form, so he would be advised of them. If they do not, and he moves in or whatnot and finds out that there is some defect with the pool that wasn't disclosed, he certainly could have some damages there from the sellers. But right now, as far as inspections, if his time is over, it's over for all inspections.
So let me bring something up here that I think is very important, not only for people who are buying homes with pools, but maybe there could be a list of this, and I'm just going to bring some that come to mind. Inspection of pools, inspection of septic tanks, inspection of external generators that are on. These are things that inspectors don't normally inspect, and in many cases, they'll have you sign a form that says you understand they're not responsible for inspecting these items. So, no, you may have just signed something rather quickly, Dick, and you didn't realize it. But Lee, let me ask you, if he's past the inspection deadline, but he still has a pool company come out, if he can get somebody on short notice, come out, and they find a problem that wasn't disclosed, can he then make an issue of it legally because the seller could have known about this particular problem, whatever it might be? And again, I'm using pools, but it could be a septic issue, or it could be a generator issue, or something else that an inspector doesn't necessarily inspect.
Sure. At that point, you have to have a nexus. You have to show that the seller knew of the defect and did not disclose it, or should have known of the defect and didn't disclose it. And if he can show that, let's say, for example, if you're talking about septic systems, those are the ones that, because there's a finite number of septic companies.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of times the person who is called out there has already been called out there by the seller, and they'll say, oh, yeah, I was here, 2 months ago, and I told him that, he should do X, Y, Z, and the seller doesn't disclose that. Well, that's pretty good proof that there's a nexus between the failure to disclose and the issue. And in that case, yes, the buyer would have rights there to say, you need to fix this, you didn't disclose it. And also, delay closing if they don't get it fixed before closing. So, because at that point.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that. So with a pool, it would make sense for the buyer to maybe visit the house just to say, I'm looking to measure rooms or something, and walk over to where the pool pump is, because many times the pool companies will leave their little stickers on there for service. So they'll know who it was, and you can make that call and say, hey, have you serviced this, and is there a problem?
Right.
Yeah, good point.
Good idea.
All right. Greg, when you recently bought your home with Casey, the one you're in, I know you met with Randy. So what was that like? And you don't have to give details, but you basically, it was an interview.
There's a backstory. First off, this was my second home with Randy. And the reason I went with him a second time is because, obviously the first time went so great. And Randy helped me, full disclosure. Actually, no, I think it might have been our third home with Randy. But he helped me get my credit in line, 10, 12 years ago when I was first on this process. And everything with Randy has been great. He's responsive. He's personable. The process is easy to understand. He's got assistants that when he's not there, they step in and they don't miss a beat. I mean, and as real estate agents, we have lots of people that we know and that we could trust and go through. Randy was my guy. I'm a loyal guy. And it's just,
So the reason I ask this is because, Randy, Bill and his wife are about to buy their first home, and they weren't quite sure how much money they can borrow. The combination, according to Bill, combined income, $135,000 between he and his wife, and he says we have very little credit card debt, and they're trying to figure out how much of a home that they can afford. Where I was going with asking Greg on this was that you had basically a consultation with Greg, looked at basic key elements of Greg's and Casey's life to determine what they could afford. What are those key elements that that Bill and his wife...
you weren't looking for a Randy Rocky plug. I just assumed.
No, it wasn't a Randy. It wasn't. But, hey, listen, he doesn't get enough pat on the back from all of us, so it was worth it.
Well, first of all, I need all the help I can get. But thank you, Greg. But anyways, with that being said, their debt to income ratio is usually, so how much debt they have compared to how much income. Usually you can conservatively say 40%, and they would have to come with a minimum 5% down. So in that scenario, they make about $10,000 gross a month. So we can use at least $4,000 a month, and so you're looking at about as long as they can put 5% down, they're looking at about a $550,000 approval.
Oh, that's not bad. As long as they don't have a lot of debt. That is correct. It's when you don't remember you have debt that creates the problem, I would suspect, for loan officers when they're putting it together.
And that'll show up on the credit report. So when that happens, then obviously we just tear down whatever that number is by how much debt compared to income they have.
All right. Final question. This is for Lee. Fran wrote us an email. She heard us talk a couple of weeks ago about disclosing whether a crime or murder was disclosed in a home before you buy it. She's looking for a house right now. She's not so concerned about a crime in the house, but she would like to know if something like that in the past could be disclosed by asking her agent to ask the seller's agent, and could it hurt the value of the home down the road. So I'll take the last part of that. But so what are the guidelines, Lee, for asking your agent to ask another seller's agent about a murder, suicide, whatever it might have been in a house?
Sorry, I lost you.
Oh.
I lost you. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh,
Can you hear? Yeah.
Okay, so yeah. Yes, that is exactly what she needs to do. A buyer who wants to know something like that, which is not a defect, it's called a stigmatized property. It's not considered a defect because it's not something physical with the property. If a buyer wants to know any kind of information like that, they have to ask that question of the seller or the seller's agent, and they are obligated to tell the truth. So if that seller knows, yes, there was a murder here 10 years ago, or they know, yes, there was a major crime here, or there was a haunting here, whatever it is that's a stigma, they have to disclose that honestly. And but if the buyer doesn't ask, they're not necessarily going to be spoon-fed that information. The seller might say, well, they didn't ask, so they didn't care, And of course, you might as well go ahead and tell them because the neighbors are going to tell them anyway.
Exactly. And that was my point. You should talk to the neighbors about this. And could it hurt the value? I would tell you, yes, it could. A number of years ago, I've talked about this. One of my clients' buyers put an offer in on a house, found out later from a neighbor that there had been a murder in the house, and the clients pulled out. And that could be a real problem in terms of trying to resell. So just understand this is a real thing, not something being made up, that we all should be aware of whenever you buy a house, to do some due diligence on that. All right, we're out of time. My thanks to Lee Harris, legal counsel, Limestone Title and Escrow. They do a great job over there, and Lee does a great job. Her direct cell phone is 649-7964. Then also we've got Randy Rocky at Swan Financial, who also, as you've heard Greg attest to, does a great job. 645-0736 is his direct number. My son Greg does our photography, marketing, and just has raised the level of his game up another level. It's phenomenal, so good for him. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, anytime, day or night, on my cell phone, 376-5483. We are out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.